Welcome to the Minority Trailblazer Podcast, and I'm your host, Greg E. Hill, the Culture Change Agent. On this show, we interview young, successful minorities in a variety of fields to educate, empower, and inspire our current and future generation leaders. And as y'all already know, we got a show for you today. I'm excited. If you enjoy world traveling, if you enjoy waking up and working wherever you want to, if you ever wanted to quit your job and just travel the world and be you, get paid to be you. And let's get a little deep, because sometimes if you don't listen to the end of the show, you miss how real the show gets. So I'm gonna be real. If you ever suffer from anxiety or depression while reaching your dreams and your goals, this episode is for you, because I think sometimes we get it twisted when I interview successful people and whatnot, and we don't touch, like, we have anxiety too. Like, cats, everybody's in the same. I'm preaching right now, but I'm just gonna get into the bio of this guest, and we gonna get into the show, all right? So after silently suffering from anxiety disorder and depression, she quit her lucrative corporate career to backtrack through Asia solo for 3 months. She then created RachelTravels.com, a travel blog dedicated to empowering the young black cultured to travel and experience the world. A Florida native, she is a 2-time graduate of Florida A&M University. That is a brief bio, but I'm excited because she has my namesake, and she just a wonderful, vivacious black woman. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Rachel Hill to the Minority Trailblazer Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much, Greg, namesake, for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and we just gonna jump right into it. If you are new to the podcast, our show is broken up into three parts. The first, we're gonna dig into the past, like before she started traveling the world, backpacking for months on end and getting paid just to travel. Like, I still don't understand how that works, but before all that, we're gonna show how, like, what is her story. The second part, we're gonna talk present day, like, what does a day look like? Because we see a lot of online entrepreneurs and people that are traveling the world, but I'm all the time looking on Instagram like, what is their day look like? What do they do all day? So we're gonna peek into that. Then we're gonna talk about the future of her website, the future of her brand, and the future and what her dreams are, because I think that's very pivotal and important. And then the last round, we have a culture change round where we ask a series of 5 questions, rapid answer, to see, kind of pick a brain on her books, some of the blogs she reads, and just her general interest. So, at the beginning of every show, we started off with a quote and a story from our featured guest. So, Rachel, please share with our Minority Trailblazer Nation a quote that you live by and a story, how you apply it to your everyday life.
I would say a quote that I live by every day is to never take anything personally. It took me a really, really long time to really understand that. And I guess it's a quote, but it's also one of the 4 agreements if you've ever read the book. But I found that not taking things personally and taking yourself out of a lot of situations and realizing that a lot of things that happen are part of the journey or may not be a direct reflection of you helps me to move past a lot of challenges and insecurities and doubts really, really quickly. And it happens in my daily life where I'm constantly putting out fires. As an entrepreneur, I'm sure you're very familiar with this. Things happen that you're not expecting or you're aware of, and you're, constantly putting out fires and meeting with people and networking and different things like that. So just don't take things personally. It's all part of the journey. Take it as a lesson and move forward.
And you already know I'm about to ask, what was the last fire you put out?
The last fire that I put out was probably this morning. I just secured a social media intern and another virtual assistant. I found that since the beginning of the year, I've been scaling my business, 2 of my businesses up, and I've just been so overwhelmed trying to do everything on my own. So, everything from small grammatical errors in newsletters and, trying to manage social media and not, having it automated that I want, and just trying to control too many aspects of my business. I I finally, put that out this morning by hiring somebody who does it way better than I can. So yes.
That is encouraging. I'm in the same kind of boat. But yeah, now this is your chance. It's the first part of the show. I'm giving you a soapbox, and on this soapbox, you're gonna stand on this soapbox, and you're gonna share your story before corporate America, before leaving your job and getting into the fun stuff, traveling the world and having a two companies that have interns. Share with us kind of who you are, who is Rachel Hill, kind of where you come from, your background, and this is your light. The spotlight's on you. What's up?
Gosh, girl, you make it sound like so much pressure. No, it's all good. So, hello everyone. My name is Rachel Hill. I am originally from Orlando, Florida. And let's see, I my parents still live in Orlando, born and raised there. I went Actually, let me back up. So, a lot of people want to know like how I came to love and be so passionate about travel. And my love for travel actually came from when I was a little girl. I still read books a lot now. I read about 4 books a month, but I've always loved reading. And I love reading because it took you to different eras in history, and it took you to different places around the world. And as a little girl, I always promised myself when I had the opportunity, when I was older, I would go see the very things that I read about. So when you're reading about the Great Pyramids, I was like, I want to go see the Great Pyramids. You know what I mean? When you're reading about coral reefs and, the Great Barrier Reef, I was like, I want to go see that. I want to go touch those things and see it for myself. And so I think that's where that passion and that love for travel stem from, is just, reading and having a child's imagination and just, traveling through that. And it's always just been in my heart. So that's where the love for travel came from. And in high school, I actually was in an international studies magnet program. And I think that just kind of kicked off everything, because throughout the magnet program, we had an opportunity to travel to Italy. And we also had the opportunity, it was about 10 of us.
This in high school?
This is in high school. Yeah, I was in
Wow. And
a
you went to high school in
international.
Orlando, Florida.
Yes, in Orlando, Florida. And it, like I said, it was international studies. So we studied world religion, we studied languages. So had to take Japanese. In high school, I took Spanish. You could have taken Latin, Russian. There was like a gamut of different languages you could have taken. So I did Japanese and Spanish. Um, and then again, you had opportunities to travel internationally. We had guest students come and exchange students. So I was a part of an exchange program where I actually spent a month in China. So that was my first travel experience at 17 years old. I spent a month in China.
Okay.
So we went to Beijing. We went to a couple other smaller cities, and we went to Tibet. So from there,
Quick
I
question
had the
before you
travel
even
bug.
get there. How was that
Absolutely.
month in China at 17 years old? Take us there, because I've never been outside of Montreal. So as a 17-year-old and you're in China for a month, like if you share quickly, maybe a story or just what that experience was like. Bring us there.
Absolutely. So this is, mind you, 2004. So this is before the Olympics and before the World Expo. So essentially, the world had not been in China. And if you know the history of China, it's a communist country. So there isn't at the time, a lot of international Western travel. So a lot of places we had gone, it was myself and another young lady who was also African American, but we were the first Black person that many people had seen, especially in the smaller towns, right? So it was just very interesting going in, and people wanting not only to take pictures with you, but want to rub your skin. And
Wow.
at the time, I had braids in my hair. So, here I am, 17, young, Black, braids, and I'm in these small towns, and I was living with a family. So it was a very authentic experience. But that was, I think, the first time I realized that there needs to be more of a Black presence in the world. Like, why am I in a pocket of China, and I'm the first Black person that many people have ever saw in 2004, So I would say that was probably like when I realized there was a need there. But it was a great experience. We had a chance to go to Tibet, and meet monks, and go to Tibetan
Wow.
royalty.
Uh-huh.
to the house of a Tibetan prince and his wife, which was amazing. Um, like I said, I live with a family, so I ate Chinese breakfast and lunch and
So real
dinner,
Chinese
and
food, not General Soul's, not all
not the stuff you get it from the corner store, the four wings and the fried rice. It was nothing
the
like that.
mumbo sauce.
No, it was definitely not like that. The food was amazing though. So just though that experience was definitely a turning point in my life. And then from there, I went on to Florida A&M University, where I studied business. I got my bachelor's in management, and I got my MBA in marketing. And I went on to work for a Fortune top 50 company, top 100, top 50. I believe it's still top 50. I had a great career. I had probably the ideal life that society tells us we're supposed to have, right? Like I graduated from college. I went and got this quote good job. I had an amazing salary. I had a very full social life. I was living in New York at the time. Yeah, I was running around and getting it, right? So then I had an opportunity to transition to Philadelphia. So on the outside, I had this amazing life. I was still traveling, with the 2 weeks of vacation that I got, right? Every year. But I literally was so miserable on the inside because I was like, is this cannot be the life that God has for me. That I'm, chipping away at metrics and reports, all the time. And I'm overworked, unappreciated, and technically underpaid for the amount of work that I was doing, working on the
Were you
weekends.
an analyst? What were you doing?
So I was an IT project manager.
Okay.
And so I was in charge of, I actually had two different roles. One role was because I transitioned every year to different roles. So one of the roles was in digital marketing, which was amazing. I got a chance to develop apps and
Oh snap!
work on
What?
websites. Yeah, it was a really, really awesome experience. But if within corporate America, if they are doing cutbacks, the first thing they'll cut back on is marketing. So they downsized our department, and then I moved over into a true project management role, where I was overseeing a portfolio of about 20 IT projects. And so within that role, I basically was putting together metrics, reporting, analytics, and then reporting that to the vice president of our department. And so on the outside, it sounded very prestigious, and technically it was, but I was just really, really miserable. And I realized that it got to a point that I knew I needed help when I, did this great presentation for our vice president. All the directors were there, and all these great people were there. And I left the meeting, I went to the bathroom, and I literally had a meltdown. And I was like, this is not cool. I'm 27 years old. I have this ideal life, but why am I so sad? Why are these things not making me happy? And I realized I had this facade of, what people thought that I should have and what I thought that people wanted me to have, but it just wasn't making me happy. And so from then I decided to go see someone. I went to a therapist. I know that's like really taboo in the Black community, is like seeing a therapist. Most folks will tell you just pray it off or, whatever. But anyway, I went to go see a therapist, and I took some time off of work. And it was at that point, just taking a step back and really sitting with myself and being honest with myself, that I wanted to get back to the things that really made me happy and really made me feel alive. And I knew that was travel. Travel always made me feel alive and happy, and, allowed me to gain clarity about different things. And so after that, I was like, you know what, Rach? If anything, you have these degrees and you're super duper intelligent. If you need another job, you can find another job. Let's quit. Let's travel. Let's regroup, and then we'll go from there. And so I ended up quitting my very comfortable lifestyle in July 2014. And I backpacked through Southeast Asia by myself for 3 months. I went to 8 different countries within Asia, 3 months.
Wow.
Backpacking by myself. I met some amazing people. I had some amazing experiences. I became a scuba diver. I laid with tigers. I met monks. I went to countries that borders had just been open 5 years
Wow.
ago. I had all these just amazing experiences and so much clarity, and I just kind of walked. That was when God revealed like my purpose and how I don't have to live by the constraints of society. And if I just trust him, then everything else will just fall into place. And, even to this day, it still holds true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how, and then from there, I started Rachel Travels initially while I was backpacking to keep my family and friends abreast of, my experiences and that I was okay. Because obviously everyone was very concerned that I had just left an almost six-figure salary and I was going to Asia by myself where I knew no one. So I know
Mm-hmm.
everyone was pretty nervous about it. And so I just started the blog, just kind of like, hey guys, I'm cool. Look who I met. This is an experience I had. And from there, people started reaching out to me about, me doing reviews and coming to stay at their hotels. And it just kind of opened up all these opportunities. And from there, I became Rachel Travels.
That is a story. That is a look at God. I love that.
Yes.
Like, and the two questions I wanna ask. The first, I always ask my entrepreneurs, what was the last straw when you said, okay, I gotta quit my job? Like, cause I like, what was that moment where you said, was it the moment where you delivered that presentation, or was it a moment where you said, this is it? Because I know it's hard. Because I mean, I'm not gonna put your salary at that, but I know you was making a lot of money, and life was okay. I mean, of course you had some down moments, but then you had those moments where you at the city and you're not worrying about when you're at the bar or running up a tab or buying something or treating yourself. And so it's like, I know there was some emotional stuff, but what was the last straw? You said, okay, nah, I can't do this anymore. Let me leave.
I think it kind of started off with the emotional meltdown in the bathroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point I was like, nah, it has to be a better way than this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it wasn't even I would say that's probably the last straw, but the moment that I realized I could do this
Mm-hmm.
without having to go to corporate America. And like I said, I know that everything has its purpose and everything falls into place if you just stay faithful.
Mm-hmm.
Is I ended up meeting this young man in Bangkok at our hostel, and he was like 24 years old, and he was like, yeah, I spent 6 months in Ireland because he was from Ireland, and
Mm-hmm.
the other 6 months I spent traveling the world. And he was like, I have an online business, this is what I do. And it was me meeting him on the most random way possible. He just happened to be sitting at his computer, and I asked him to watch my book bag as I had to run to do something, I think to pay for a coffee or something like that. Happened to start talking to him, and he is the one who kind of put into my mind, like, you don't have to go back to corporate America. This
Mm-hmm.
is how people are out here living and traveling and doing the things that they wanted. So I would say the meltdown was the last straw, but I was encouraged when I just happened to meet this random individual who just kind of confirmed all the things that I finally knew
Mm-hmm.
that I could do. So
Yeah.
it was just like a divine intervention. I've never talked to him since then. So it was just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like something that I guess just needed to happen. So I would say that was probably the point when I knew that I could do it.
Because that is powerful. Because I mean, of course, everybody some days. I mean, I know some of you might be in your jobs like, man, I'm not really into this. I want to do something else, and you're about to quit. But I think it was really important that when you met one person through God or through a random the act, and he showed he was a benchmark, a blueprint, like it can be done. Because if you quit your job and you have no blueprint or you don't see it can be done, then I'm gonna tell you it's gonna be very difficult for you if you can't if you
Absolutely.
don't see anybody else doing what you're doing and making a living from it. And so
Absolutely.
you had that confirmation. You're like, yo, it is possible. Like, it's real out here. People are really doing 6 months and then 6 months traveling the world and then making money from it. So I know that was very a major key to it. And let's jump right in. What was your first year like in business? I know, like, and when you're said, okay, now in order to eat, I must kill. Like, there's no going to a supermarket and getting stuff
Right.
pre-made. Is like, how I'm gonna eat, I have to go out here and get it. So walk us through as an audience your first year as an not online, just an entrepreneur in general.
So my first year was pretty interesting because although I knew in my heart I could do it, and I joined like a program to kind of like walk you through the steps of starting an online business.
Mm-hmm.
I would say my first year was lots of trial and error, lots and lots and lots of trial and error, and
Stories.
just reverse. reverse engineering and building. I felt like, I'm really smart. I've worked in corporate America. I know a lot. I have all these great experiences, but I definitely took the first year to learn as much as possible, listening to lots of podcasts, reading tons of books, following a lot of the gurus who've been doing it for years and studying their methods and reading the books that they were reading and joining their free webinars and teleclass and different things like that. But definitely in my first year, it was just kind of establishing my brand, establishing confidence that I knew exactly what I was talking about. It was just a lot of building for sure. And I think that's true for most entrepreneurs is, that you could do it, but just being confident enough and learning and building that foundation and constantly be growing. And I think that's true in any aspect of your life, right? Like you constantly want to grow and learn, and there's someone who can do it better than you. So you need to be learning from those people, studying from those people. So the first year was definitely a lot of trial and error and reverse engineering. And I would say even still, I'm still
Of course.
taking risk and, reverse engineering and, this worked for me. Let's see if I tweak this little bit here, if it'll work. So the first year it was interesting. It definitely was quite a journey. And there was plenty of days that I'm like, you know what? I might just have to go back to corporate America. It's so much easier. I'm guaranteed a check every 2 weeks or, whatever, and guaranteed some health insurance and different types of insurances and investment plans and things like that. I experienced a lot of that in year one that I do now. But like I said, it was a journey. It was fun. It was frustrating. It was challenging, but that's how year one typically goes for most people, I would think.
That's the name of the game. It's crazy. They said about like entrepreneurs think about, or just in general, before you quit your job, think about health insurance. Like, because I didn't, when I first quit my job, I didn't think about health insurance. And I'm like, yo, if I'm on this trampoline or I'm hooping, I turn my ACL, that's $100,000 I'm out the bank. Like, it's
Right.
real out here. Like people go
Absolutely.
and foreclosure, bankruptcy, like health insurance is real. You take it for granted when you're in corporate, but when you out of corporate, you realize how much it really cost. It ain't $140 a month that you getting it. I be mad. Like seriously, I get my check, I'm pissed. I see $100 for health insurance. I'm like, bro, I ain't even sick. But when I got,
Exactly.
when
Oh
I
my God,
got,
I have such a funny story with it.
yeah, like share a story, please do, because I don't want to I want to make sure we're gonna talk high level about certain things, but I do want to dig deep into some real stories so y'all can realize how real it is just in general. Because everybody bring on the show, I don't want to just talk. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Like share us a story with that.
So, as far as health insurance is concerned, I was working for the number one health, like I would say, pharmaceutical healthcare company in the world. And so my health insurance was amazing. I wasn't paying $100 a month. I was paying like $20 a month in health and dental. And we had, a clinic on every campus. There was a doctor and a nurse and all this stuff. And granted, I was never sick, but just the thought that if, for example, I ended up getting sick at work and I just went down to the clinic, they wrote me a prescription, they checked my vitals and different things like that and sent me home. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is normal, right? And then the first year as an entrepreneur, I literally did not have any health insurance, any dental insurance. And so the only way that I was able to get seen, luckily I still had my health savings account from when I was working. But the first year I was praying every day, like, I hope I never get sick. I changed my eating habits. I started looking into like holistic ways to, heal, if I had like a cold or something like that. And so it's really tough when you kind of have that like security of having that health insurance. If you need to walk into a doctor and get a checkup because you have the flu or, the pink eye or, whatever you have,
Yeah.
versus year one, I didn't have any of that stuff. And I just refused to pay $250 a month for Obamacare because I was just not sick. There was no way I was going to pay more for health insurance than my business expenses. And that was just like my thought
Yeah.
process. Like, I'm never sick. So I'm not going to spend this when I could be investing 250 into my business.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm at a place where I do have health insurance and dental insurance, and I'm
Amen.
so very grateful for it. But those are the kind of struggles that you, or the challenges that you have to, decide on as an entrepreneur. Do I want to use this money to invest in myself and to my business,
Mm-hmm.
or into something like health insurance, whether I need it or not? And then I was like, okay, when I file taxes, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to have a penalty because I didn't have health insurance? And grateful I don't have to pay a penalty for it. But, these are the things
Yeah.
that you have to make these type of decisions about, so, as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I
it
got you. I got you on
happens.
that. And another question: what if you can share? If you could share with us your best travel experience thus far? And I was gonna wait to the present round, but I just wanted to kind of hear your perspective. Right, we're in this space right now. What is like? What has been your best travel experience, and what has been your worst travel experience? Because I'm interested. I always love to hear these stories.
So I would say most of
Start
my,
with the worst first.
you want to start with the worst first?
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as to be completely honest, I don't have any like absolutely terrible stories where I was like almost robbed or kidnapped or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one, one thing that was probably the most interesting, maybe not worst, is when you go to China, and this happened, and I've been to China twice. I went in high school, like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, and then I had the opportunity to go again while I was in graduate school. And it was funny to see the difference because, like I mentioned, in high school, this is before the world had been to China, before the Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
which is literally every country in the world comes to China, and the World Expo. And then going in 2009, I believe we went. And so this is after the Olympics, after the World Expo, right? Um, so then now being black in China wasn't necessarily as big of a deal or as cool to see, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with China is that, I would say in most Western cultures, staring is considered rude,
Mm-hmm.
or, taking pictures without asking is considered rude. And the Chinese people, culturally, they just don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, they try to take, photos of you. They think it's discreet, but it's not discreet. Or, want to come up and touch you, or will stare at you and point and talk about you. So I would say that's probably, if you aren't aware culturally about it, then it could be probably an adverse experience, because you think people are looking at you as if you're a zoo. But it's more so a cultural thing. And Chinese people treat everybody like that. That's not Chinese. I have a friend who's Russian, and another friend who's German, and we were talking about our experiences in China. One girl is blonde hair, blue eyes, and she had the same thing happen to her where people were taking pictures of her and pulling her hair and different things like that. And then the Russian girl, the German girl had the same experience. So I wouldn't say it was because I was black. It's more so because you're not Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
or you just look completely different, that they treat you that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just probably, like I said, something that will make most people uncomfortable if you're not aware. As far as my best travel experiences, there's no like one story, but I would say every single time I return to Africa, I just came back from Morocco earlier this week, but I meet people who look exactly the way that I do, or like my mother, or someone that I know in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always so very welcoming, like, welcome home, oh my goodness, you look like my sister, or you look like my aunt. And this happened to us in Egypt. This happened to me in South Africa. This happened to me in Kenya, and recently in Morocco. And I would say, as I just returned from Morocco this week, I happened to be in one of the souks, which is a market. And I went into a little shop that was making custom linen and curtains and things like that. And the guys who owned the shop were these black men.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know about Morocco, it's considered the Arab world and an Arab country. So most people they look Arab. But these guys were black and they were my color. One of them gets up and he's like, oh my goodness, you look like someone from my village. And I was like, oh, where's your village? And he said, in the Sahara Desert. And I was like, oh, that's so awesome. And so we were talking and we're taking a picture. And, I was like, talking to them, and he was like, well, welcome home, my daughter. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. So that to me is like one of the best feelings ever, to go across the world on the other side of the world and be welcomed home. And like I said, it's happened to me in Morocco, and every country I've ever been to, they always, want to welcome you home and, say like, oh, you look like somebody I know. And so it's just an amazing experience to see how we're worlds apart physically, but genetically we're the same and we look the same. And you can see, if you guys go on my Instagram account, racheltravels.com, you'll see a photo of myself and the two guys in the shop. So it's pretty cool. We really do look alike. So that was funny to me.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And it's crazy, like, you get so much love all the way across the world, but you in Atlanta right now, you go to a wrong street in Atlanta and they won't even look at you. Like, I be running, I'm running on the treadmill. I'm waving at cats, and cats are giving me look like, do you exist?
Right. Like, who you waving at?
It's discouraging. I mean, every morning I get up and I'm running, I'm waving, I'm saying good morning. I'm looking people in the eyes, good morning. I mean, some people are like, yeah, and then some people are looking straight through my soul. That throws me all off. So we're about to end this round, but before I end, I always ask my guests, knowing what you know right now, what would you tell yourself 5 years ago?
Knowing what I know right now, I would tell myself 5 years ago is to learn as much as possible. Don't burn any bridges. And again, not to take anything personally. Like I said, this is a lesson that I've learned within the last year and a half or so, but to not take it personally. It's all a part of the journey, and to embrace it. And I think a reason why I was suffering from anxiety disorder and depression is because I was taking everything in and taking everything so personally, and like, I'm working so hard. Look how hard I'm working. Look what I put together for you, and you still don't appreciate it. And so that played a huge part in my psyche and what I thought I could deliver or couldn't deliver. So I would definitely say to trust yourself, trust your intuition, and not take things personally. It's a journey. Just embrace it. Take the lessons and not the people that come with the lessons.
I love that. Take the lessons, but not the people that come with the lessons. So we didn't get a chance to talk about it on the first part of the show. And as we kind of transition, I definitely don't want to make sure we miss this, because I think it's critical to your story. Can you share with us how you got through and some of the things you learned dealing with anxiety and depression? Because that's some things that we really don't discuss a lot in the people in the colored community, minority community, but as well as just in general. And we always take it from a slanted lens when we think about depression, so and anxiety. So could you please just kind of share your story a little bit in that perspective?
Oh, absolutely. So, like I said, I had what most would consider the ideal life, or the life that is supposed to be like the life you aspire to have, after college. And it wasn't until, I would say the first year after graduating, everything was good. I'm just out of school. I have this great salary. I have this beautiful apartment, and, I'm in the city and going to brunches, and it was good until, I started working, and I'm like, this is not really what I like to do, but, it happens. People tell you sometimes you have to do the things you don't like to do in order to do the things you want to do. And I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense, right? And it wasn't until like kind of going through the motions, right? I was going through the motions, and I felt like I was on autopilot and I wasn't producing anything of value. And I knew that I've always wanted to do something that was helping other people. And I think a lot of times we always say we want to help other people, but I just knew my purpose was tied to helping people get to a certain place. And I just felt that in my life, I wasn't walking in purpose. And I think if you're truly tied to your purpose, and if it's something you want to pursue, you'll get those tugs and those pulls in your spirit and in your intuition. Like, there's more that I could be doing in this life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a point where I had went through a bad breakup, and then my job was just, overwhelming, and I happened to be in a department where, long story short, the department or the entity of the company that I was working for was in trouble with the FDA, and so we had to do a lot of different things to like get us up to standard,
Mm-hmm.
and audits and things like that. So I was doing the work of three different individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and on top of like a bad breakup and bills and all these different things were just like piling up. And there was moments where I think the anxiety started, where I would be typing and my heart would just start beating out of my chest to the point where I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And I'm like, okay, that's probably not
Wow.
cool,
Uh-huh.
but okay. And then, there would be times where I would slip into what I now know is depression, where, I just wanted to sleep. And the things that I love doing, like working out and traveling and reading, I no longer wanted to do anymore. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's like a sign of depression. And at the time, I just thought I was just tired and overwhelmed and things like that. And then, like I said, um, or even like waking up and can't sleep, or having like disrupted sleeping and waking up and my heart is beating fast, and I'm like, I just woke up, like what am I thinking about that's making my heart just beat out my chest? Or driving to work and just feeling like I wanted to vomit. Those kind of things that after a while, I'm like, this is probably not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like most people, you shouldn't feel this way going to a place that you're supposed to be at for the next 30 years or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, and like I said, it wasn't until I had that major meltdown. And on top of that, and I think this is really what a lot of us deal with, is that because I had this facade of being very happy and, having this lucrative job and, having this great position and, having all the things checked off. And I was trying to hold it together for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Your family is proud of you, your friends are proud of you, you look really cool on social media. And I just wasn't feeling any of it. And so I think it was after that, like I said, that meltdown, like my turning point, that I was like, this is not cool. And I was going to church and I was journaling and doing all that stuff, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was helping. Prayer helps, I definitely and obviously, but I just knew it was going to take a little bit more than prayer and people praying
Mm-hmm.
for me to get past that. And so that's when I started going to therapy, and I refused to take medication.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order for me to opt out of taking medication, I either had to take medication, which I wasn't really with, or go see a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I opted to see someone who was completely unbiased, who wasn't my family, who wasn't a friend, because your family and friends want to protect you and tell you all the things that you want to hear, and kind of coddle you. And I needed to talk to someone who didn't have any invested interest in me,
Mm-hmm.
an emotional invested interest. And so that definitely helped me. And then I was able to take some time off of work and really figure things out from there. And so I think taking that opportunity to go to a therapist and taking time off of work and taking time away from the toxic environment that I was in, that was perpetuating all these negative thoughts and these feelings of anxiety, definitely helped me have some clarity around what my next move was going to be.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And
No problem.
what I got out of is a couple things. The first thing being the self assessment piece. Like that's critical. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in life that we're moving and shaking, we're moving and shaking, we're moving and shaking. We never step back and self assess. Or we're in the opposite end of the spectrum where we're just not doing a lot. But when we're not doing a
Hmm.
lot, we're not using that time to self assess. We just chilling. So
Right.
that self-assessment piece. And the second thing is you got unbiased feedback.
Right.
That's critical. That's critical, especially when, because your family members, they can only take you but so far because they got your heart. But you have people that do not care. And they're trained to do it. Because I think that's why God allowed college to train psychologists. Like, that's why they're
Right.
here. Like, they didn't just exist out of no reason. That's why they're here. This is their job. So of course you seek the word, but the word allows you to have that confidence to know, yeah, yo, I need to get help, outside help.
Right.
Like, because I mean, those people, a lot of those people go to church too. They believe in God too. They not just here. Nah, that's a part of the whole plan. So you had that confidence that God told you, yo, you need some help, and then the third, you took action on it. Like, you took
Right.
action on it. You said, okay, this is a problem. And I need to get it addressed. And I getting feedback. So let me take, and then now look where you are now as far as that mental clarity. So that's a great thing. So let's transition to.
Wait, can I say something before
Sure,
we
sure, sure.
transition? Initially, I would say within the first year of my business, me talking about my anxiety disorder and depression was something that I kept to myself, right? Even my parents didn't even know that I was going to therapy for a while because I didn't want them to worry and be like, why are you going to a therapist? Your friends or anything like that. But I definitely think that me being very open and honest about this part of my journey has catapulted me even further because it just shows that I'm just like everybody else. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people suffer from anxiety disorder or depression, there's different levels to depression, right? There's like mild, and then you get all the way to severe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of us kind of deal with anxiety or depression on some level or another.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me and for anybody else, you have to be really authentic with your story and what you went through to get to where you are now. And like I said, initially, I was still kind of like holding on to that facade. Like, yeah, I quit my job and look, I'm traveling the world now, which is cool. But then when I got really real with myself and with other people, like, yeah, I had to quit because if not, I was like spiraling down emotionally. And it was because I dealt with this, So I think it's really important, if no one takes anything else from me with this podcast, is just to be authentic to yourself and your story and the challenges that you face to get to where you want to go and to where you are now.
Man, I love that. That's a major key right there. I'm glad you brought that to attention, because I guess I don't like to do it on a podcast, but I'll step on the soapbox real quick with that, because I think that has been my God-given gift, is transparency. And that's what allowed me to, with my blog, with my speaking and everything else, to just fast track a lot of the things I do, because I got that next gear that a lot of others, people in my niche as far as speakers and bloggers, don't have, because they're afraid to look bad. Like, you see,
Mm-hmm.
we know it all the time, especially in our minority community. I'm sorry if a few of you listening right now that you look at their Instagram and it's only popping shots. It's only in the club. It's
Right.
only looking good with your girlfriends. It's only you getting awards and accomplishments. And people like it, but a lot of people really, that's why people have a lot of haters, because you don't have that common touch. And I see it so many times with speakers and people that have their own businesses. The reason why they're a lot of times they reach a glass ceiling, because they're not transparent. They don't bring us in.
Right.
They don't bring us in. They just show us the popping stuff. But I will say this: if you're gonna show us the popping stuff, it better be grade A quality and content, like Traveling the War.
Right.
They don't gotta share no struggle story, because everything they post, it's a brand and it looks amazing. So it's whatever. But if you're gonna be a subpar speaker or a subpar entrepreneur, and you post your accomplishments and they don't even look good, like the branding is all off course. So get straight with your core. Like, when you want to be a speaker, you want to start with your core, because that's what's going to be your differentiator. Like, they're like,
Absolutely.
I rock with Rachel Hill because even though I see her all across the country, I can follow her snaps, I can read her comments and say, yo, that's real life, that's deep stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
can relate.
Absolutely.
So I want to call her. I want to call her and do business with her, because I know she's just like me.
Absolutely.
So I think that is a key. Like, we can do a whole podcast on it, but it's like key thing I want everybody to think about and take away, outside of course being authentic, is what is the difference? What is your difference?
Right.
Like, think about if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a student, if you're a parent, what is your difference? Like, what is different about you than all the other parents or entrepreneurs and whatnot? And once you find out, does everybody else know that's what's different about you?
Absolutely.
Because everybody know when you bring Garrett Hill, you're gonna bring energy, you're gonna bring passion, and you're gonna bring honesty. because I lived it, I said it, I did it, and I have proof. And I have that gear, but a lot of other
And
speakers,
not ashamed about it.
you're not ashamed. So definitely, like I said, I know, let me get off the soapbox, but really think about it. Really, please, what is your difference? What is your difference? If you're a student, yeah, okay, cool. This ain't it. This ain't it. Yeah. So let's get to the fun part. Let's get to your niche, your sweet zone, your sweet spot, and that
Hey.
is the present. So explain to our audience, what do you do right now? Like what do you do? What is Racial Travels blog and your business? Like what keeps food on your table?
Okay, so I mentioned that I have two businesses. So before, well, let me say this. So I started with Racial Travels blog, right? And a lot of people, the question I get all the time, almost a couple times a week is, how do you travel so much, right? I know that's like the big question, like what are you doing that you're able to travel? So I have the travel blog, and there's different services that I monetize on there via coaching sessions. I do some monthly workshops on there sometimes. I have a subscription service. So I monetize my blog. But before officially starting my second business, I was doing business coaching and consulting.
Mhm.
So as I said, I was an IT project manager, and I was like, you know what? If I'm smart enough to run multi-million dollar projects, I can do this on my own, right? Like I
Mhm.
have the skills, I have the confidence, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about. And so that's how I keep food on my table, and that's how I'm able to travel. Travel is not expensive. I know we're going to talk about that in some upcoming questions, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But that's how I'm able to pay my bills. I mean, I still have bills, y'all. So the consulting and business coaching is my primary source of income, and then the blog. So I have Rachel Travels blog, and then I also do the business coaching now, which is an official entity, and it's called ihiredme.co.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in a business coach, I help people tap into their passions and tap into their skills and create online empires. So getting
Mm.
started, if you go to my site, I still have a couple of tweaks that need to happen, but that's essentially what I'm doing. People want to know how I'm able to do it. Instead of me saying, I have online businesses, I do consulting, I'm going to show you how you can do what I'm doing.
Mm. Okay, so I'm about to put you on the spot. All right.
Uh
I'm sorry. So all
oh.
right, I'm new. I'm working a 9 to 5. I don't know what my passion is, but I come to you and I want to make money. I want to find my passion and make money. What are the first two things I do?
So the first thing that I like to tell my clients is, what were your childhood dreams? Right? Because when we were little, you had all these dreams. For me, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to be a dancer. I liked technology and computers and all this stuff. So I like to do an exercise where you write down your childhood dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can tap back into those things, and then also write down everything that you are really, really, really good at, and that you can talk about for hours and hours and hours for free. The stuff that you talk about for free and that you know about more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like for you, I'm pretty sure you could talk hours and hours on leadership and public speaking and all this amazing stuff. I don't know much about public speaking. I have a speaking engagement coming up, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm not sure how this is gonna work. Like I'm gonna, put together my talking points. But I also can talk about traveling and how to travel authentically, but really inexpensively for hours with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of talk about those things and tap into that, and then talk about ways that we can monetize that very information.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially with online businesses, you're selling information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they call it information products or information services, whether that's through coaching and consulting, whether it's through e-courses, e-books, workshops, different things like that. So we kind of start there,
Mm-hmm.
and then, roll into, once we
The
figure
real
out
stuff.
the rest of the stuff.
And to that point, let's take a step back with the blog. So, how did you first start monetizing your blog? Because I wanted to ask you that in the first time, but because I know, all right, you quit your job, you're an entrepreneur now. Everybody, okay, but what was the first step you say? Okay, to start charging, and then how did you calibrate what should I charge? Because that's the number one question that I know everybody asks me, and that I try to find out myself. And honestly, there's not a lot of blueprints out there. There's not a blueprint. But share, what's your story as far as when you said, okay, now I want to start charging, and then two, when you really started to monetize and know your worth?
Okay, so as far as Rachel Travel's blog, I was in the same boat. I was like, I don't know how much I'm supposed to charge for various services. One of the first ways I started monetizing my blog is through sponsored posts. So essentially, hotels or businesses, restaurants, whatever, will come to me and say, hey, can you feature us in something and we'll pay you? And so initially, I didn't know how much I was supposed to charge for a sponsor post. Do I charge $20? Do I charge a couple hundred? Do I charge thousands? And like you mentioned, it ranges, right? Depending on how much traffic your blog gets, different things like that. So that was one of the first ways that I was able to monetize my blog. And then eventually I created a subscription service called Rachel Alerts, which basically I have an assistant who does this, but finding all the best travel deals that are out there and texting the people texting my subscribers, the best deals, right? Mm-hmm. And this could be every day. This could be a couple times a week. But I found that people wanted to know, like, okay, how are you able to travel so inexpensively? And it's because I'm able to find these amazing travel deals or these glitches. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people end up missing them because they pop up at awkward times during the day when you're probably at work, you're in a meeting. And I realize people don't necessarily check their emails all the time. I know I don't. I check my emails twice, maybe 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. But you check your text messages most of the time of the day. So I have it to where we'll text you the deals versus emailing it. So that was another way that I was able to significantly monetize my blog. And then I started doing consulting sessions because I realized that I know a lot about travel in my industry, and I need to start charging for what I'm talking about. And so then I have a consulting. So if you want to book some time to talk about travel, I'll help you, figure out your trip. If you're concerned about, traveling solo or traveling with a group or anything like that, that was another way I was able to monetize. So it kind of was a progression of different things and listening to my audience and figuring out what they wanted to know. And then also, conducting boot camps and workshops that are live, and then you pay to join, and then, packaging that stuff up, and then, creating a bundle out of it. So just scaling. And then as far as my coaching business is concerned, I think one thing with coaching or consulting is you definitely have to get rid of money blocks, which I know a lot of us have, is like, maybe I'll charge this much because I don't want people to think I'm too expensive. But I mean, you know more about a subject than most other people, and that's why folks are coming to you. And so you have to pay to play. And that's just kind of what my business coach has told me, is that you are worth it. You're valuable. But the way that you start is ridding yourself of money blocks. Because a lot of times we, have this fear of money or losing out on money or, holding on to money and bills and loans and different things like that. And we could talk about this forever, but you definitely have to, reprogram your mind to look at money very differently. Mm-hmm. And especially I would say in the Black community, we have been programmed to think about money a certain way.
It's so weird. Like,
absolutely.
Say if you want to do, okay, I charge $50 an hour to consult you on traveling. You're like, oh, heck no. 50 for what? But you don't realize $50. I'm gonna save you thousands of dollars doing this $50 call.
Absolutely.
But we're not thinking like we say $50. Like, what, girl? I'm gonna look on these websites, these free websites. I'm gonna look on this. You spend hours and hours of your time
and
researching.
You're trading time for money. Like, you could have just spent the $50 or $100 or whatever and got all the information that you needed in one place, and you saved yourself time, stress, because you really don't have the time to spend there for hours, when you could be doing something else, right? Mm-hmm. But absolutely, and especially in our community, we are like, oh, I don't want to pay $50 or $100 or a couple $1,000s to get the information right in my hands. So you try to do it on your own and end up getting overwhelmed and you just give up, right?
Hmm.
Or but you will definitely spend those 50, 100 or thousands of dollars on things like Jordans and weave and whatever. And I'm not judging because I wear weave myself, ladies, so I'm not judging in that in that respect, but it's all about priorities. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of times the way that we think about money is very differently from our other brothers and sisters who think about money in a different way.
Yeah.
So,
And I will preface, and I know and me and Rachel on the same accord. I definitely, when we talk about this in the show, we said, and I'm coming from and we're both coming from a mind frame of people's ideologies with money, not more so belittling our community. Because there's some people like Rachel, like myself, and I know a lot of others that they'll go to a conference, they'll spend $1,000 on a conference, whatever. So it's not we're not coming at black people in general. It's just certain people have mindsets and blocks, and I definitely like your thoughts on that charging block. Like, oh, I don't want to charge too much or whatever, because guess what? There's 7 billion people on this earth, really.
7 billion.
7 billion plus. So if one person like, oh, I can't afford you, no, whatever, like keep your price there, because if you're putting out good content and adding true value, somebody's gonna be like, oh, $100, oh, that's nothing. Okay, I got you.
Right.
Just wait for that one
Absolutely.
person. Don't try to get, because and we can talk on a day and we're gonna switch it. But if you get these people that's gonna do $10 or 15, they're gonna bring $10 or $15 worth of effort.
Absolutely. And worth of information. So you like I said, you pay to play. You either can pay and get quality, or you can just keep paying for $10 things and get $10 information or products or services, whatever you want to call it.
Amen. And then I'm sending shots out here to these students. I'm sorry, because I go speak at a lot of universities, schools, and whatnot, and a lot of people reach out to me. Greg, you got 5,000 to 7,000 people coming to your blog, or you getting these, but whatever. How do I do? I want to do what you do. I want to do what you do. And I'm thinking I'm looking out for them. So I'm like, okay, man, here's my card. Hit me up, bro. I got you, bro. I answer all your
Hmm.
questions and whatnot. Man, they'll reach out to me. They'll miss the meeting. They'll say, oh, something came up or whatnot. And I'm like, bro, I'm
Absolutely.
preparing. Like, this is me. I am busy. I'm preparing at length. Tutorials. I'm going in like, okay, I'm looking at their brain, giving them ideas and suggestions, and they dropped the ball.
Yep.
They just don't care. These are students. I'm like, I'm trying to look out for them because they students, but I have to realize, like, no, I don't care who you are outside of my mama or my close friends. You want some time and you're asking some advice, I have to charge you, because if not, you're going to disrespect me for the most part.
Right. You don't respect my time, but when people are investing, and again, it's a psychological thing. When you're investing and you're investing an amount that is not $50 worth of information, but you're really, really investing, you're going to take your investment serious. If you pay $20 for something, you're like, I may or may not show up. It was just $20. But if you're really going for the gold, then you like, look, I put aside a couple hundred, a couple thousand, whatever, for whatever service or product you're paying for. I need to show up, and I need not respect their time, and they need not disrespect my time, and show up with quality, valuable information. So I absolutely agree.
Hmm.
And that's just something that, like I said, people need to realize in general
Hmm.
when it comes to money, when it comes to pricing, when it comes to doing business.
Yeah, we talked about the importance of coaching and leveling up. And I think sometimes some entrepreneurs, we reach a glass ceiling. I know I've reached a glass ceiling where I need coaches and people that know the system. So can you speak on it real quick? How when you reached like a glass ceiling, you said, oh man, I need to do something. How coaching, getting a coach, or even that aspect of finding a coaching has helped you kind of change your business.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's always in order to level up, you have to study and work with the people or get mentors or read books of people who have done it and who's doing it and who's doing it better than you. And I just realized I was at a point where one, you can't scale a business, you cannot grow a business on free tools. And initially I was trying to do everything free, like get the free version of MailChimp, get the free version of this, and just seeing how it goes. You honestly have to invest in your business, whether it's tools, software, interns, assistants, and you have to invest in yourself personally, um, reading books and getting a coach. And for me, I got to the point where I'm like, all these free tools are allowing me to grow at a snail's pace. Or I believe it was you who said this, like you're moving, but you're not progressing. And I just got tired. I felt like I was almost putting myself in a hamster wheel. Like I'm moving, but I'm not going anywhere because I'm kind of scared to invest, right? And so I was like, in order for me to really invest, I need to hire someone who's doing it and who's doing it better than me, or who's done it and who's done it better than me. And I think a lot of times too, people think you have to reach out to someone who is like 10 steps ahead of you. You really just need to work with somebody who is a step or two ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to go from 0 to 100 real quick, because you're just going to run out of gas real quick. So you need
Ooh, I
to
like that.
go.
I'm gonna use that in this. I like that. I'm gonna give you credit. I like that one though.
Thanks, just quote me, okay? But you need to work with somebody who is a level or two ahead of you, right? And because they've already done it, they have the lessons learned. They've done it, they failed, and who can work with you and give you the blueprint and really motivate you and really help you. And so I ended up hiring a business coach. Her name is Ariel, and she's super awesome. And, she's spiritual and, all the things that you have to make sure you work with somebody who is aligned with your vision and who believes in the same things that you believe in and all that great stuff. So just working with her and, the best way to do this, or different tools to, look for certain type of information, and basically not even shortcuts, but just getting straight to the information versus how we mentioned before. Instead of me saying, I don't want to pay, a couple thousand or $1,000 or a couple $100 for your service or your product, I'll do it myself. But you're just wasting so much time trying to do that. And that was another thing I did in the first year of my business, is trying to do everything on my own, like just doing the research. I don't want to pay $50 to get my website done. $50 is nothing compared to hours that you spending trying to figure out, how to connect plugins and what looks good and whatever. Just pay the 50, a couple $100 to somebody who knows how to put together something, or who is an expert and who could just get it done for you, or who can show you the way. So just, yeah, investing, getting a coach, someone who is a couple levels ahead of you, who can just really get you to where you need to go. So yeah, it's all about investing in yourself, and continue to invest in yourself. Even after I'm finished working with my business coach, or if someone's working with me and they're finished working with me, continue to grow, like continue to read, continue to listen to podcasts, get another type of coach who can help you level up in a different area, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a,
Finance coach.
finance coach, or anything like that. Just continue to work with other people and read other resources that's going to help you to grow.
Let's get to it. Travel. Okay, because I'm new, and I can be like the avatar for a lot of my audience, because I haven't traveled that much, and a lot of times, for me right now, it's just not a priority. But where do we start? I want to travel for free, or just kind of walk us through for novice travelers. Okay, where do I find, like, how do I travel on a budget? How do I go about traveling alone or with a group? Give us a travel 101 real quick.
So really quick, if you want to travel internationally and you have a very limited budget, there's two things that you have to remember. If you want to go international, but you want to do it inexpensively and authentically, I like to add in authentic, right? Is be open to your dates. So when you're able to go, and be open to the destinations. I know a lot of times we have these lists of these dream places that we want to go to. For example, one of my dreams was to travel to Australia. I had the opportunity to spend the new year in Australia. However, Australia is not the cheapest place to travel, especially from the States. A flight is easily upward of $1,200 and up, right? And that's in economy. We're not even talking business class, because I looked at business class and it was like 15, either business or first class was $15,000. Okay. So you have to be open to your dates and to your destinations. And I say that because, for example, in November of last year, I was able to go to Bogota, Colombia, which was not necessarily one of the top 10 destinations on my list of places I want to see, right? But I was able to fly there round trip for $176. And the 4 days that I spent there, I only spent $130, and that included my hotel,
What?
included salsa dancing, included eating, tours, our cabs, everything, right? So, and I actually have a post. If you go to racheltravels.com, I believe the name of it is How I Did Bogota for $126.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so check it out if you're interested. But the two tools that I would say to look at, and they're some of my favorite tools on how to find inexpensive places to travel, is number one, is my number one favorite is Google Flights. It's www.google.com/flights or something like that. But just type in Google Flights, it'll come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Google Flights because you're able to put in your current location. So, for example, if I put in Atlanta, and then if you just click, there's like a map that comes up. You can click that map, and it'll show you all the places in the whole world where you can go if you plug in some dates, where you can go for cheap. So it'll have like Rio on there, how much it costs to go to Rio right now, or how much costs to go to Mexico City or to Paris or whatever. So I like looking at that. If you have sometime you just want to play around with the tool, you can see where you can go for cheaply,
Mm-hmm.
for inexpensively. And also skyscanner.com has a similar type of technology where you can type in your current location, and you can put in there in the next, like it'll say from and then to, and you put under to, you could put everywhere. And so it'll literally give you everywhere you want to go in the world. And then when it comes to the dates, you can choose cheapest month, which is great because if you want to go inexpensive, you just choose the most inexpensive month. Or you can choose a month where you're able to go. So if you're a teacher, obviously summers may be best for you. So if you want to put in July 2016 and you put in everywhere and you click it, then it'll show you all the cheapest places from Atlanta to everywhere in
Wow.
the world during July 2016. And then from there, you can pick places that you want to go. And then you also can do it both in Google Flights and in Skyscanner. But if you want to do Caribbean or Eastern Europe or Asia, Thailand, you can narrow it down and you
Mm-hmm.
can see the cheapest months or the cheapest destinations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say stay open and be flexible with your dates and destinations if you want to go somewhere. Now, if you have your mind set on going to say to Thailand, then you can set up alerts in both of those systems to kind of get alerted when there's a cheap deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say start there, play around with those tools. And that way you can book a cheap flight last minute. Like I said, I saw the flight to go to Colombia for 176. I'm like, I'm definitely going next weekend. Why not? And I went over a weekend. I left on a Friday morning and I returned on, I believe, like a Tuesday morning or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or a Monday night. So you could just take off one day from work, or a day from work and still have a whole weekend in another country.
And the next step, what do you do when you get there? Like you're about to speak on the travel authentically. So okay, we got the flight, and we're
Mm-hmm.
novice. Now I'm here. What do I do?
So I would definitely say if you want to travel, if you want to stay somewhere authentically, I am a huge fan of Airbnb. No one can ever talk bad to me about Airbnb because I utilize them almost everywhere that I go. I've stayed in luxury 5 bedroom condos in Dubai. I've stayed in a suite or like a luxury suite condo in Rio. Um, Different things like that. And I love Airbnb because you can have all kinds of experiences. You can rent a mansion, you can rent a van, you can rent a igloo, or you could just get like an apartment or a house or anything like that. So I like Airbnb if you want to have that authentic feel. Obviously, if you want to do hotels, there's plenty of aggregators out there like booking.com. But I would say if you want the most authentic experience and the more inexpensive experience, opt for Airbnb because you can choose the type of accommodations, your style, you can read reviews. And if you want luxury, you can have luxury. If you want budget savings, you can have that. And you kind of cut out the middleman as far as hotels are concerned
Mm-hmm.
with, all the different fees that they charge and the percentages and stuff. With Airbnb, you're working from host to guest. And there's like a small fee that Airbnb takes, but it's really not that bad.
Mm.
And as far as things to do, um, you can just do like a quick Google search. I like to search. One thing I like to do is top 10 places to see in insert city, right? And then you'll get plenty of blogs that come up about different things that you have the opportunity to see. And another thing I like to do is look up free walking tours. So you can also search free walking tours in Toronto, in New York, in Philadelphia. And a lot of big cities have free walking tours where you can do a tour of the city and you just have to tip the guide at the end. But I really like doing that because you'll see a lot of pockets of the city that you normally wouldn't see on your own. And typically the guide will give you some really great information on, where to go clubbing or if you like dancing at night or places to eat that are really good but really inexpensive or what the local drink is or, what some authentic local experiences. So I always like doing those as well.
I know this is pretty high level for a lot of you. Like, okay, cool. If you want more in-depth things, and on her blog, she has a lot of gems. Like I was just reading this earlier this morning, the ultimate guide to avoiding the most common travel scams, and I was like, people, this is like the broken meter, the attractions closed, child beggars, how to avoid them, like the scam, the group photo scam. I didn't know that they'll take your phone to get a group picture and then charge you for the picture, like.
Yep.
And then the hotel wake up call, like when people will call a phone in the middle and whatever you're at, and they'll ask for credit card information. And if you're not aware, you just give it to them like, oh, it's the hotel calling, but that's not the hotel.
Right.
So
The
all.
hotel will never ask you for your information over the phone.
Mhm.
You typically have that, you give that information up front, either online when you booked it or when you leave is when you typically pay, for the time that you stayed there. So if anybody else is asking for any kind of credit card information, then don't give it to them. Ever, 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 ever.
Even little things like, this is gems from her blog, and she keeps it. I love her blog. She keeps it 1,000. Restaurant staff, like when you give somebody your card in a third world country and they just take it, you never know what they're doing in the back of the card.
Yep.
Like, like but if you're not new to this, you thinking it's American. You're like, oh, here's my visa, boom. They're like, oh, thank you, and you like, it's been 10 minutes. Like, what's going on? And you see all these random charges come, like carry cash, and this is all stuff. Like, this is next level for you, next level people out there that are interested in traveling and doing research. When I bring a guest on the show, not only, okay, this is a dope podcast, go on their website, go on their blog, because, and I'm gonna have all the links in the show notes for all these things, because there's some amazing free content out here to get you on top of the game. So that's all we probably gonna give y'all on the travel tip right now. And we're gonna go to our last round, which is the future round. And what's next for you for the remainder of 2016?
So 2016 is already starting to be amazing and just leveling up. And I remember you said this, I believe it was on your Snapchat, which I love watching every morning because I know we're both up super duper early. But you were saying to level up 1% every day. And so I've just seen the fruits of that just in 2016 alone. I've had the opportunity to go to 3 countries already. I am on your podcast, which is absolutely amazing. I'm so honored to be here. I have a speaking engagement this week. I have a couple speaking engagements already lined up through the summertime and being invited to a couple large publications. So 2016 is looking really, really good. I have some sponsored trips already in place. And if you guys aren't familiar with sponsored trips, is technically a tourism board from a different country or city will reach out to you and say, hey, can you come visit us? And we'll show you the city and we'll pay you for doing it. So God is good in that respect. So yeah, 2016 is looking really, really good for my travel blog and also for coaching, getting that off the ground and offering it publicly versus just, you know, by
Through a
word of mouth
grapevine, yeah.
now. Yeah, through the grapevine and word of mouth, offering my services to the masses now. So I'm really excited for the new year. I can't believe it's almost March. I feel like the new year was yesterday. So everything's looking really good. I'm really grateful and, show gratitude every day and thankfulness and just try to be valuable as much as possible to the people that, I'm looking to inspire.
Got you, got you. Who do you look up to, and who are your mentors currently?
So one of my mentors is her name is Sabrina. I'm not gonna say her last name because she'll probably kill me. But it's funny the way I met Sabrina because she actually reached out to me on my Facebook page. And a lot of people send me emails and reach out to me asking questions, but something about her was just like super interesting. She went to the same university as I did, and she has her PhD, and she talks a lot about travel in the Black diaspora, which is something that obviously with my blog, majority of my audience are Black travelers and urban travelers. So just one conversation with her, and we hit it off, and everything that I ever had questions about as far as life, as far as business, she was always able to answer and keep it 100% real with me. And I think that's important in having a mentor, is someone who loves you, but they're going to be honest and transparent about what areas you need improvement in, and areas that you can do differently, and resources that'll help you to be better than what you already are. So Sabrina is super awesome. And then as far as who I look up to be honest, I don't look up to, like, not saying that I don't look up to them, but it's not any celebrity or high profile individuals. There's a family called the Johnson family. I actually interviewed them on my blog, but they are a young Black couple and they have two children, and they make it a priority for family travel. And I absolutely love this family because they are spiritually rooted family, and they make sure that they are exposing their children to the world. So they travel to Costa Rica, they've been to Brazil, to India, to Australia, everywhere that they can go. And they talked about on the interview how they're able to travel with a family of four, and how it's not expensive, and how, there's ways that you can cut back by getting a place where there's a kitchen and you can cook meals versus eating out, and finding travel deals, and making sure, just all these different things. So I really look up to this family because, like I said, they're a spiritually rooted family, and they make traveling and exposing their children and exposing their family to the world. And there's also another couple called Cool Young History, and both of these families are on social media. But Cool Young History is a young Black married couple. I'm good friends with the wife, Amira, but they got married and went on an indefinite honeymoon. And so I really look up to them
Wow.
because they have been traveling. It's been, I want to say, over 2 years at this point.
A 2 year
And
honeymoon.
and they're going to keep going until they just decide not to. But
Did
they've,
it work?
you know, well, so here's the thing. This is why I love this couple, because they do work, and they talk about ways that they are able to travel and continue to travel. The husband is an artist, so he's able to do a lot of artwork and sell it online and sell it to people, and do things within the cities that they move around to. And they move around every couple months. So I believe right now they're in Malaysia. They were in Morocco. They spent time in England and Panama and South America. And then the wife is a writer, and they have e-courses, and they do consulting, and they manage bed and breakfasts when they need to. So I really, really admire them because they went against the grain. Amira had an amazing job as well. She quit her six-figure salary to travel with her husband. So I really look up to the Johnson family and to Cool Young History because they, show that you don't have to go by the constraints of what society says you have to do. You don't have to be a Black family and say, we can't travel because it costs too much. You can make some sacrifices and save up for it. And with the Johnson family, they say, we save up for it. We have a fund where we put money in this fund so we can have a family trip once or twice a year. You know what I mean? And with Cool Young History, they said, okay, well, we'll quit and we'll just travel, and we're going to figure it out as we go. And that's what they've done, right? So I look up to them. I would absolutely recommend that you look into. Wait, I hope you can edit this out.
Yeah.
I hope that I definitely recommend that you find these people on social media and really look into their stories. It's super awesome. I actually interviewed both the Johnson family and Cool Young History on my blog. So if you just go to racheltravels.com under reflections and under interviews, you will find both of their stories there.
Oh man, Definitely, definitely. That would be in the show notes. I didn't even know that was even possible. 2 year indefinite honeymoons. I learn something new every day. I love it. The last question of this round is, how do you want to be remembered when it's all said and done? I hate to get. I always hold up. I gotta pause. I hate to go 0 to 100 because I know we're excited. We traveling. We going to indefinite honeymoons. We're talking about a lot of great stuff. But to get to the spot when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
When it's all said and done, I want to be remembered as a woman who went against what the design of my life was supposed to be, according to what society said, according to what people wanted for me, and had a desire and knew I deserved to live a life of purpose and filled with purpose, and walking and living in purpose, and going against everything that I was supposed to do and doing it the way that I wanted to do it and the way that God had me to do it. I want to be known as someone who took risk and stayed faithful and was able to see the fruits of my labor and the fruits of my sacrifice, and was able to, inspire others to do the very same thing, to live in purpose and live the life that you want, the life that you desire, and the life that you deserve.
Perfect. And
Thank
now
you.
we're transitioning to the last round, the most exciting round, the culture change round, where I ask a series of 5 questions, and you're just gonna give me your best answer. All right, you ready?
I'm gonna have to be. I'm ready.
What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Wow. I would say the best piece of advice that I've ever received. I'm not sure if this goes back to the quote, but oh, no, no, no. I would say it's this. Whenever you feel like you're having a breakdown, you're on your way to a breakthrough. And I have to remind myself of that. Some days when I'm like completely discouraged and overwhelmed, I just know that on the other side of it is going to come my breakthrough. And when I started thinking that way and just saying, you know what, this is a part of the process, that keeps me motivated, and that keeps me kind of holding on. Is It's not a breakdown, it's you're on your way to a breakthrough. That's the best piece of advice that I've ever received.
Great answer. What is one of your personal habits that you can attribute to your success?
One of my personal habits that I contributed to my success is learning about productivity and time, and stop trading my my time for work and start trading time for money. And I wake up very early in the morning, and so I use that time early in the morning to dedicate to, reading the word, and to journaling, and to sitting still and writing intentions and things like that, which I think helps me form my day and keeps me level headed and gives me visions and goals to complete for the day. So I would say waking up early and getting to work, starting with the spiritual work and then getting into the business work. I said those are probably like the personal habits, and then learning how to be productive with my time, and stop moving and start progressing. So stop, just doing little bitty things when you can allow other people to do it.
Amen. What is your favorite book and why?
So I read a lot. So I read about 4 books a month. And so it was really hard for me to, like, when I read the question, I was like, wow, my favorite book. I don't really have a favorite, but I can tell you 2 books that I read at the very beginning of every year. And one of them is called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And the lady who wrote it, her name is Florence Shovel or something like that. But her first name is Florence, so look that up. I'm going to warn you guys that it was written in the 1920s. So the words are very archaic and old, and it's kind of hard to decipher some of it. But I really like the book because it gives you like the rules and the game of like the rules of life. And I believe you said is like where life is about playing chess, like moving the right pieces on the board and knowing the rules and how to play the game. And it's not like a bad thing, but just how to keep your mind in the game. And she uses a lot of examples from the Bible and how Jesus said certain things and, you know, how that relates to the game of life. And then I also like reading The Alchemist or listening to The Alchemist. I just do like the audio book of it, but I really, really like listening to The Alchemist at the beginning of every year because it just puts things into perspective for me.
Love it, love it, love it. And those books will be in the show notes. What
Okay.
inspires you and keeps you motivated the most?
What inspires me and keeps me motivated the most is, I would say, the desire not to go back to corporate America. But in all seriousness, just having the freedom to live the life that I've always wanted to live keeps me inspired. When I travel, I always come back with so much clarity and so much creativity. And I just love being in that space where I'm constantly inspired and constantly have this creativity and able to give the information that comes to me to everyone else. So that keeps me inspired and keeps me motivated. Another thing that keeps me inspired is when people are emailing me and telling me like, you know, how they went through something similar and, you know, I've inspired them to, you know, do something that is a little bit more enjoyable for them, or have they never, you know, wanted to travel before or was too scared to travel, or, you know, whatever it relates to traveling, and how, you know, I've inspired them to travel. So that also makes me feel like, okay, I'm working in purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So that definitely helps me stay motivated, even in the toughest times where I'm the most challenged and the most overwhelmed. It reminds me that, you know, there are people who are rooting for me. So that definitely keeps me motivated as well.
Great answer again. You're killing it. You're killing it. Last question of this round. If you were the president of the United States, what is the first thing you would do?
The first thing I would do is eradicate student loans and make healthcare free for everyone. Especially traveling, you see a lot of countries, healthcare is free, education is free, and I'm not gonna say necessarily free. You pay for it in your taxes, but at least you know your taxes go to like premium healthcare and getting an education and all that stuff. So I would probably say, you know, getting rid of those crazy student loans because I feel like that's what's holding a lot of people back. Like I know people who are in their 40s still paying for student loans, you know, and that's just like crazy to me. Over 20 years worth of paying for an education, you know, that you should be able to be educated, especially in a country such as this. So getting rid of those student loans, making education free, and making healthcare free, I think would be pivotal.
Love, love, love that. And now the last question. That round is done. The last question of the episode, which is a very serious question, and I call myself the culture change agent because we're all, and honestly, you're a culture change agent, and everybody that's been on the show is a culture change agent. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a culture change agent because you know this is a long podcast. All my podcasts are very long, and people I love, yeah. So this question: if you could change one thing about society, most specifically our African American culture, what would it be, and why?
If I could change one thing about African American culture specifically, I would say to be open to more experiences versus material things. And I say that because we all have heard the statistics that the African American community spends a lot of money on material things, which I, like the next person, likes nice things or whatever. But I think if we were more invested in experiences, we would see things a lot differently. And I say that from the perspective of financially, that you'll see that there's people a lot happier in this world with a tenth of a percent of the things that we have. I think that would be very helpful. And then also, as far as, the racial tensions that we experience here in America, if just being open to traveling, you'll see that you're welcome with open arms in most countries in the world. I think that would be something pivotal within the African American culture. So I would definitely say just being open to experiences, traveling experiences specifically, and it doesn't have to be necessarily super international experiences, but just experiencing, fine dining, experiencing wine tasting and painting and, hiking and different things that, you know, t- stereotypically we aren't necessarily doing a lot of. Those would probably be the things that I would say I would change
Oh
within
man,
our culture.
love that. That's a great answer. And honestly, this has been a phenomenal interview. It really has.
Thank you so much for having me.
For anybody out there that has any questions about traveling and that has any questions about entrepreneurship, starting off with a blog, 'cause we didn't even talk about your blog and views and stuff like that. Where can we find you at? How can we contact? Where are you at on the web, and how can we get in contact with you?
So, if you want to contact me, you can always visit my travel blog. It's racheltravels.com. Rachel spelled Rachel, travels with an S.com. You can shoot me an email at Rachel at racheltravels.com. And if you want to visit me and talk a little bit more about hiring yourself, you can come to ihiredme.co. That's .co. And you can email me at ready@ihiredme.co.
Well, audience, you have it. So please, definitely shoot her a message. If you like the podcast, let her know. Add her on Instagram, add her on Twitter, and definitely. And if you reach out via email, tell her Greg Hill sent ya. So that's a wrap for this episode. I'd like to thank each and everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Minority Trailblazer podcast. And I want all of you to have an amazing night, morning, evening, wherever you're listening to it. Be amazing and do one thing. And you already know what that one thing is. What is that one thing, G Hill? That is change the culture. Good night.